Caddis Maximus here, this time with a review of the Northwest River Supply's NRS Wonder Pump 6. This would be a 6-liter or 1.5 gallon double acting raft inflator. Of course, it can be used to inflate anything from floating pool toys and things like that to air mattresses, etc. I tend to be a fan of these manual pumps, especially the double acting ones. Double acting means that kind of oddly the nozzles are on the moving part, on the handle, rather than the body of the pump, and that's because it has a special valving system, so when you both push and pull, it's putting air out. So they're much more efficient. They're twice as efficient as a standard pump because you're not pulling it up, pumping some air, drawing in more air. It has special valving where it's sucking air in through one nozzle and blowing it out through another one, which also means it has the ability to deflate. And that's one of the big issues I find with the electric ones is they don't deflate. Many don't even have the adapters or the capability to actually suck. They only blow, or inflate, I should say. And then, like with an air mattress or a raft or anything else, you're trying to roll it up and squeeze out the air. Where on this, it's really nice because it's always, since it's double acting on both up and down, it's blowing out here. It's also, of course, double acting on the vacuum, so you can suck out air just as fast. And having the vacuum ability allows you to really draw all the air out to cinch up whatever inflatable, whatever you're inflating or was inflated. My goodness, I should say whatever you're deflating, and draw all the air out to really get it sucked down, with the vacuum to really tight, so you can roll it up in very compact spaces, and that's another advantage I like of this. The problem with electrics really is, one, they are a drain on your battery if you're out, by the lake or whatever you're doing to use an electric one. Unless you get an expensive and large electric one, they tend to be pretty slow, where this is moving 1.5 gallons every time you pump, or 6 liters. And the other thing about electrics is that they can be quite noisy. This pump is actually pretty lightweight, I'll have to admit that. Maybe a couple, 3 pounds. I really appreciate that. The other thing about it, which is surprising, is it's made in Italy. There weren't many YouTube videos at all about this pump. There are a few online reviews and they've been hit and miss. For me, it seems just fine. It's plenty durable. You know that it's only a 2 or 3 pound plastic pump, and it actually seems to have plenty of rigidity for that weight range. I also think some of the issues is with all these kind of piston pumps, including bicycle pumps, you gotta have a real light oil, and you have to oil them pretty often. On this one, you just unscrew the cap and carefully take out the piston, put a couple drops of oil on the outer seal, and then you tilt it back in. What's really nice is they have this little diagram, and then right here they have actually surprisingly clear instructions for both maintenance as well as general operation, and I appreciate that that's just right on the pump itself. It includes a pretty long, I'd have to say maybe a 5-foot corrugated hose. It has a small tip for inflating, small pool toys and those types of things. And then for larger things, air mattresses and rafts, they always have these larger fittings. And what I also appreciate is this is one size, and then it has this whole ring. They're all joined together. If you only ever use one, you can, of course, just cut one of them off. But it has this ring of 6 additional sizes that just slip over this part, and then you push it in. So that was really intelligent to make it pretty much universal. These run about $40, and I think they're actually pretty well worth the value. You just make sure you keep them oiled, and they're really pretty darn reliable, and they're rather convenient. I've really gotten quite used to this pump. I've had some electrics, and I just don't use them anymore. It's not a whole lot of exercise to use this pump. It's not super hard to operate, and it will go up to 1 atmosphere or 15 psi, which is really plenty of pressure. You're not going to pump up car tires or anything with this, and that's not what it's intended for. But 15 psi for a raft or anything else is a huge amount of pressure. You can pop a lot of things at 15 psi, so I think that's just fine as well. And on a last note here, it does include this carry bag. This is the the packaging that it ships in. But I thought it was a neat idea that they took that bag. It's actually really extra thick plastic. Obviously, over time, this bag will get so beat up that you can't, it'll just tear and you won't be able to use it anymore. But at least for a while, it is a nice carry bag, and it has a couple little snaps and a handle on it. So I always kind of thought that was a nice aspect of this. And actually, there's quite a few products where it'd be nice to have some packaging, even if it's plastic like that. That was a little more useful, that you could carry around the product rather than just open the packaging and throw it away. It's actually a little bit forward thinking, having reusable packaging. I guess, one of the obvious downsides of this, of course, would be its size. It is pretty bulky, but that's one of the sacrifices you make so it can move a lot of volume for each of your cycles. Now, obviously, if you're using this to pump up some huge 10-person whitewater raft, it's going to take a while. But you could do it with a pump like this. It is big enough to actually move enough air to where maybe it might take you 10 minutes or something, 15 minutes to do something like that. And that's another advantage. If you're inflating small pool toys and those kind of things, it's surprising. You can pump them up in just a minute or two. And that's why I've always appreciated about it. Anyway, that was just my review of this NRS Wonder Pump 6. There just weren't many videos on it. I seem to have several items that there just isn't a lot of videos on, so I wanted to put this one out there and kind of do my 2 cents and give people just a little bit better look at one of these pumps. Anyway, I'm going to open it up real fast just so you can see what's inside here. If I can, there we go. It's real easy to kind of over torque this top cap, and then it can be a real struggle to get it back off, so you have to be careful. But they are smart. They use, instead of just normal like metal threads that you might use on something that's metallic, they use really thick squared off threads, so that's pretty wise. It is pretty greasy in here just because I've made sure to oil it. Let me pull this piston out. You do have to be careful with the piston. It does tell you to kind of tilt it as you put it in. But what we can see here is there's actually 2 different valves there. And so how that works is when you push, one valve opens and sends air up. This tube, this handle tube, actually has 2 channels in it, one for intake and one for exhaust. And so when you go down one stroke, it opens one valve. When you go up, that first valve closes and the second valve opens. And it's really a pretty simple and ingenious design. And I did want to mention that on the bottom here, as you can see, they use 6 screws to hold together the assembly down here. And I like that as well. It actually seems quite secure and will last a pretty good amount of time. And just making sure you keep these seals oiled, that's the big deal. Once they start to dry out, they'll just bind up on the plastic and fold over and get ruined, although you can still order parts. And then putting it together just is kind of just a delicate process where you kind of tilt it in. It's always a little bit funky here. Let's see if we can't do it on video like this for anybody who is working with these kinds of seals. Oh, we got some kind of... is really what I found is you just kind of have to help guide the bottom seal. That's the big deal. The way these seals work, let me mention that, as you can see, they have a cup and they point outward. So when there's pressure going on one stroke, the actual air pressure itself is forcing on the inside of the seal and forcing its lip against the wall of the pump housing. And that's how it actually, it's not just tension of the seal itself, it's the fact that there's air pressure behind it. In automotive engines and the piston rings, a lot of people don't know, but there's actually pressure from the combustion gases themselves that get behind the piston rings and actually help push them out. I was really surprised when I learned that. So you can see what I did. You just have to take your finger and go around the edge of the seal to make sure it tucks in properly. Otherwise, you're going to fold that seal over and the pump's not going to work at all. And some of the reviews, that was the issue, was fidgeting with the seal, and I think it's more just proper technique and knowing how to work with those kind of seals, because there's many seals, not just in these pumps, but just used for hydraulics and all sorts of things that are exact same nature. They actually rely on the pressure of whatever they're sealing against to actually force the seal tighter, to actually give it its sealing action. It's kind of an interesting way to think about it, and maybe confusing for a couple people. It was actually a little bit confusing confusing to me until I, sat down and learned about it a little more. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end the review here about the NRS Wonder Pump 6 and describing its basic operation and showing what's inside. If you haven't subscribed to the Catus Maximus channel, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.